we are. Some of us, we choose to become a slave of debt. And I don't know about you, but I've been there before. Where in our marriage, we started off as just assisting like junior high pastors. I graduated from Christ for the Nations as well as my wife down in Dallas, Texas. And we were like, yeah, we're going to go into the ministry. And yeah, we're going to send out applications. And then I was like, yeah, we're going to sell cars. And so, because I sent out so many applications that they weren't calling back. And so I was like, okay, I got to provide for my family. We had a little baby on the way. And selling cars, you kind of make a lot of money. And I learned that, and I kind of liked that. Well, I was on track in my second year of selling Volkswagens and to make over $60,000 as a 21-year-old guy. And I was like, yeah! And you get all these cash bonuses, and you get used to a certain lifestyle that once you enter into full-time ministry, once they respond off that application, that it's not the same. It's really not. And so our salaries cut way in half, but we were used to a certain type of lifestyle. And so we continued to live on that lifestyle, thanks to Capital One and Discover. And they chipped in, and they were supporting us 100%. But our focus began, how can I make more money? Instead of how can I follow God? How can I do my ministry? It was like, well, maybe I can do this to pay off these bills. Because the money that I was making in the job wasn't doing it. It's like, maybe I can get a second job. Maybe I can overload my life. I don't know if you've ever seen that commercial where the guy's driving along and he's talking about his new house. He's driving along his little lawnmower and he's talking about this new house and his new car and his beautiful yard. And he sits on there and he's like, and I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. And you can see the hurt and the pain and the struggles. And then you can kind of imagine in your life what his family life must be. All because we started to grab onto other things instead of just reaching out to Jesus and saying, God, I need you. You're all that I need. I'm going to focus on you. And I want to fulfill your plans and your purpose. We delude ourselves by going to our own thoughts. In Philippians 4:8, it says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think on these things. Sometimes we start to go into our own thoughts. We take what the Bible has to say and we do it our own way. It's like, this is the Billy Holden translation. This is Andrew's translation. I mean, I like what this Bible has to say, but you know what? The numbers on TurboTax, this number was really big, and then I click this button. If I just go back and don't click that button, the number doesn't go down. I don't know. I've been there where it's empty. It's empty. That number keeps climbing up and it shows that you're getting money back. Then you click that button and show what you really did, and then it goes down and you owe money. And you're like, I don't like that. I don't know. But the majority of times, I find myself losing my saltiness when I start to choose other things over God. And I think that may be the same way with a couple people in here. If it's not you, it's probably your neighbor. And we start to choose something else over God. We start to we agree that we're the salt of the earth, and we agree with the things that the Bible says, but we're over here grabbing on to other things to fulfill our needs instead of focusing on God. Plenty of times I find myself chasing things that really don't matter. They can be good things, but not God things. I substitute influence for congruence, and I try to fit in whatever I can in my life to fulfill my needs, my desires. And it's usually because I've been overexposed by the world, just like the Dead Sea salt, and all this humidity is drawing this out of me, and I'm staying in this instead of choosing to be overexposed in who God really is. I don't know how many of you study the moon, but I found out an interesting fact about the moon. The moon isn't bright. It's not. It's really not that bright. It's not that bright of a moon. It's not that beautiful moon that when you go outside and when it's a pitch black night and you look up and the moon just lights up the entire night. It's not that bright. The moon is actually a reflection of the sun. And how much exposure that it receives to the sun. And I'm thinking about that and this text and like this overexposure that we tend to have in the world where it zaps all our saltiness out of, where we start to dilute everything to where we start to grab onto all these other different things instead of grabbing onto God. What if our overexposure was in God? What would the saltiness look like then? What if we weren't chasing after the American dream? And we were chasing after God's dreams for our lives? Many times I choose exposure to the world and dilute the salt that God has made me to be. You guys said it yourselves. You said that you were the salt of the earth. There's no substitute for that one-on-one time with God. Time spent in His Word, time spent in prayer. Time spent with other believers here, gathering and focusing on His Word, setting aside time and hours of your day to literally plug into a church and be involved and spend time with other believers, exposing yourself to God. Saying, God, I want whatever you have for me, pour into me, God. Singing songs and getting lost in times of worship where the band's just playing and you're just there and you're just like, God, come into this place right now. Change my heart, change my life. Spending time in life groups. I've been leading a life group. Jeff's given me the opportunity to lead a life group over the past 5-6 months, and I've been able to go through life with some amazing people and just talk about the subjects and grow and learn. There's been some crazy things that Ben Smith has been bringing up, and I'm like, wow, awesome. And I didn't even think of it that way, Ben, but some of it made sense. But there's no substitute. You can't get that. But so many times we start to dilute ourselves. We start to overexpose ourselves to the things of this world. In closing, though, in this main verse, I was looking through the different translations to see which ones put it best, and the NIV put it great, but I think the message, the paraphrase, the message, went over and above. It says, "Let me tell you why you are here. You are to be salt seasoning that brings out the God flavors of this earth. If you lose your saltiness, how will people taste godliness?" If we, in this room, those of you that say you're following Jesus, if we go about our lives and we choose the overexposure, we choose the dilution over God, we're worthless. How else will the world taste this godliness that we have, that we've had experienced? It says, if we lose the salt that Jesus says we are, it says, if you lose your saltiness, how will people taste godliness? You've lost your usefulness and will end up in the garbage. In the garbage. I don't know about you, but that's not the most exciting place to be. That's not the most exciting place to hang out. That's not the place that I want to think of my life and my actions of serving God. He doesn't say you're going to lose your salvation. He doesn't say anything about that. He says your life is worth it. When we go to our jobs each and every day, is our influence worthless? The influence that we make, the way we live our lives, what we do, what we say, our actions, are they just worthless? Are they just blending in to what everything that's happening around you? Are we so focused on climbing up the ladder that we forget about that God has placed us there? To be the salt, to be the light, to make a difference in the world. When we're standing in line at Walmart, wondering why there's 2 checkers and 300 people in Walmart, and you're standing there and you got a cart full and something's not ringing up and you see them flash the flashing light and you're just like, "Ugh!" Are you your saltiness right there? Is that your best moment of saltiness? Or would you take that time and get to know the person in front of you? Show them your salt. Show them your life. Be that salt right there. Could God have ordained that moment for you to be the salt into that person's life. Let's fight with their 4 kids. I mean, is that your time to be that salt? And to say, I'll buy this candy bar, this will shut them up. Be that person. Will you be that salt in traffic? Will you be that salt everywhere you are? Will you take your flavor to the world? So back now to that stay salty, my friends. I want to finish off the rest of that statement. Stay salty, my friends. Because if you lose your saltiness, how will the people of this world taste the godliness that we have? If we are the salt that Jesus says we are, nothing else can be that salt. Nothing else can be that. Do you realize that we are the salt of the world? He didn't say you are the salt of the world and then go on and talk to some other people and say, oh, you're the salt. Oh, maybe you're the salt. He doesn't go over to the Pharisees and say, Pharisees, you can be salt too. He doesn't go over to the Gentiles and say, you be salt. He's saying, those that follow after me, you are the salt of the earth. But if we get overexposed and diluted to the things of this world, we become useless. We become that source where people go to when in their time of need. If we're overexposing our lives and if we're diluted in our lives, we become that source that maybe looks like a Christian. And when people come to you, and they're either going to test that Christianity out, or in that time of need, you've got nothing for them. Just like when they went to the Dead Sea salt, they would go and they would grab that salt, and they were excited about the salt because they were ready to cook and they were ready to eat it, and they were going to it for its flavor and what it was going to bring to the table. And they throw it on there and there's nothing there. It's a handful of gypsum. Yeah. It's not bringing what it's supposed to. I would hate for us to walk out of here realizing this, hearing this, and somebody at your job tomorrow can't come up to you and experience your saltiness. They come up to you and you just brush them off. You just push them to the side. How many moments has God placed in our lives where we can be the salt, but we're so diluted? In closing, though, I bring you good news. I tell you, I think there's 2 different people in here today. The first group is maybe you're here, you've experienced this saltiness. You've experienced the saltiness that's in this room. You're like, what's going on in here? I like this time, these people. This is nice. And you've experienced the flavor. Or you've seen someone live a salty life, or you got some salty popcorn, and you came. You came here because you've seen the influence of the salt, and maybe you're thirsty now. That happens to me. You eat a bunch of salty things, or you eat a bunch of salty